Hi guys, this is 310 here and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we'll be adding materials to our katana. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so this is where we left off, and I have a few changes I've made to the katana. So first off, I have added a shrink wrap and solidify modifier to my wrapping. So the shrink wrap modifier is just attaching our wrapping to the handle, and the solidify modifier is adding some thickness to our wrapping. Without it, it would just look like a piece of paper. So you might see some weird things going on after you add the solidify modifier. So that's probably because you don't have enough subdivision. So what you want to do is go into edit mode, A, and subdivide, maybe 4 or 5 times. Alright, so another thing is that I have separated this and this mesh from our handle because I want to add a separate material to it. Right, so we want to get started with the sword material. So we can go ahead, and I already have the screen split. So what you would do is just go to the top right. You see your crosshair, just split it, and then click this. Go down and click on shader editor. Alright, I just want to turn on my screencast keys, and yeah. Alright, so since we have this selected, we can go ahead and press new. So this should create a default material with the principal BSDF and material output. So for the base color, it's relatively simple. We just want this to be like a light gray. So around here is good. Since this is a metallic metal, we'll change the metallic input to 1. And since this should have a lot of reflection, we want this to be 0.1. Alright, so right now you're in Eevee, but you want to change your render engine to cycles and GPU compute. Alright, so if you do that, and when you go into rendered, you should see the light which I've added reflecting off our sword. But if you look really close to it, you might see that it's unrealistic, way too smooth. So we're going to be changing that changing some normals. But before we do that, we want to change the anisotropic to 0.5 and anisotropic rotation to 1. I've mentioned why we want to do this in my Captain America tutorial series. If you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch it. Alright. So now let's go to where the magic happens, the normals. So what we want to do is add in a normal map, and then we want to add in a noise texture, and plug the color into color, and then press Ctrl T. When you press Ctrl T, you should see a texture coordinate node and mapping node. If this doesn't work for you, that probably means you don't have the Node Wrangler add-on turned on. So what you want to do is go to Edit, Preferences, and Add-ons, and then you want to search Node Wrangler, and then just click this, turn it on. Right. So we want to change the scale for the mapping. So for the X, we want to do this. We want to change it to 10, the Y as 100, and Z as 500. You won't see any changes, so we can go ahead and just plug this into the normal. So right now, you can see it's way too strong. So we're just going to change this down to 0.1 and maybe 0.08. Alright, yeah, it should be very subtle. So this looks good. Okay, so we are done with the sword material. So we can move on to the wrapping material. So we can go ahead and add in a new material. And then for the wrapping material, we want to have like blotches of blue and navy blue. So what we can go ahead and do is add in a mix RGB node, and plug that into the color, and then change color 1 to like a dark blue, something like that. And then take our color 2 and then put it to about the same spot, and then just put it to a navy blue. Alright, so right now what you're seeing is a mix of color 1 and color 2. So that's not what we want. As we said, we want blotches of both colors. So we're going to add in a noise texture, and then take the color input and plug it into the FAC. So you can see, if you look carefully, that you can see the blotches appearing, but it's too faint, and we're going to change some of the values using the mapping node. So you can go ahead and press Control T, and then we're going to change some of these values. So first off, we want to change the X to 0.2, Y to 0, and Z to 4. Oh, sorry, Y to 1, and Z to 4. Alright, and now you can see you can see more of it, and even though it's very subtle, it makes a huge difference. Now we can go ahead and add in some normals. So for this, we're going to be adding a leather normal texture. So what we can do is add in a normal map. Then we want to add in, instead of a noise texture or any other texture, we want to add in an image texture. And then we want to get our leather texture, a normal texture, link in the description below. Alright, so now I've opened it, and I'm just going to take the color and plug it into color. And then just press Control T. This also will create a mapping and texture coordinate node for our image texture. So we can take this normal and plug it into the normal. So right now it doesn't really look good. So what we can do is take the Y and just increase it to 21. If this doesn't work for you, you can go ahead and change some of the other values. Just play around with it until you feel like it's good for you. Right. Oh yeah, and also change this to non-color data. Okay, this should increase. This, that doesn't really matter. So I've just gone to material preview to get a better look at this without that grainy feeling of our render. So I think it's too big. So let's just go back to 1 and 1. So and then I'm just gonna increase the the X. So I might change this to 20, and yeah, 20 looks good. Maybe 21. Yeah, okay. So we go back to render. Even though this normal is very subtle, if you look up close, you should be able to see it. Alright, so that is it for our wrapping material. So we can go ahead and just add in a handle material. So this is also very relatively simple. What we're going to do is add in a mix RGB node, because we will be using an image folder for this. So we'll be using something called plywood texture pack. This is in Texture Haven, and Texture Haven is a great place to find free textures. So you might want to go check that out. Link in the description below. Alright, so I have this mix RGB node. Then I can go ahead and plug the color into the base color. Alright, so for color 1, we want to add in a image texture. Open it up, and as you can see, I have my plywood texture pack opened up. I'm just going to press this albedo texture, open it up, press Control T, and then just plug the color into the color. So if you look carefully, you can see the texture properly, and you can see those lines for the wood. But right now it looks kind of whitish brown. That's because we have a white color and color 2. So what we're going to do is add in another image texture. Open this up, and then instead of using an albedo, we want to use an ambient occlusion texture. So we can go ahead and open that up and plug this into the color. So we'll be using the same mapping and texture coordinate. So what you can do is just take the vector output and then just plug it into the vector input for the ambient occlusion. So first off, we want to change the Y to X to 90, so that it will be facing vertical, and then just increase some of these values here. And this one. Alright, so this won't be very visible either. Oh, and another thing, if you see that your if my wrapping is much tighter before, what I've just done is increase the iterations, because since I have that shrink wrap, I can increase the iterations as well. So it used to be something about like 10, but then I increased it to 16 and kept the screw to 1.27. Alright. So right now our handle texture is still that whitish brown, more to the white side. So what we need to do is, instead, right now what it's doing is mixing our ambient occlusion and our albedo. So that's not what we want. We want it to multiply. And now you can see our wood texture is finally popping onto the top. Alright, so for the final material, we'll be adding a black gold metal sort of tech material for the this mesh and this mesh. So let's get started. So this should be very complicated because we're going to be having a black metal overall, but it should be like some gold. Some of that black metal is like not exactly chipped off, but some gold parts of the inside should be visible. So we can go ahead and add in a new material, and then first off, we want to take this and then copy it over. And then we want to add in a mix shader and put that in between and plug in our other principled BSDF. This is because we're going to have one as a gold material and the other one is a black metal. Alright, so we can go ahead and start out with the gold. So for the base color, it should be relatively simple. We want it to be somewhat like a yellowish color. This is gold we're talking about. And just going to put it down to 0 so that we can see the gold clearly. And then we can increase the metal to 1 and decrease the roughness to 0.25. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and work on the normal for this. So for the normal, we're going to just add in a bump node. This is different because this has a height input, which we'll be using. We'll plug it into the normal, and then we want a noise texture, and take the color and plug it into the height. Alright, so we want to, you can see that it looks very strange, and that's because we still don't have our mapping and texture coordinate node. So now we can go ahead and press Ctrl T and open them up. So for our X value, we want this to be 89. For our Y value, we want this to be 38. And our last value, we want this to be 50. Alright, so now you can see it's too strong as well. So what I'm going to do is take the strength and push it down to 0.2. It shouldn't be this strong. I don't even think 0.2 is working, so 0.1. So it should be very subtle. Alright, so this is looking good. Okay, so now we can go ahead and work on our black metal. So what we can do, since this is going to be metal, we're just going to take this to a light dark gray, and then take the metal, and it should do the rest. And I'm just going to push this down a bit more, and then we're just going to increase the fact to 1, so now I can see what the metal looks like. Take the roughness 0.25, and then what I'm going to do is take this normal map and then just plug it into the normal here. So we want it to be the same normal should be applied to both the gold and the black metal. Alright, so now we can put this back at 0.5. So right now what it's doing is it's just mixing up our black and our gold, which is not how we want it. So what we're going to be doing is adding in a color ramp. So what this color ramp, we're going to take this color and plug it into the FAC. So now if we move these values around, you can see that the closer we move the white to the black, you can see how much of the gold we want to see. But the FAC isn't right either, since it's 0.5. So basically all we're doing is taking that 0.5 and then we're controlling how much of that 0.5 value we want here. So what we're going to do, I'm pretty sure that didn't make a lot of sense, but just follow me on this one. So we're going to just add in a noise texture to this one and take the FAC and plug this into the FAC. So now you can see, well, what I was talking about, but it's too much. So I'm just gonna move this back and pull this in, and you don't want too much of it, but I'm just gonna move it to about here. I'm just gonna flip these two because I like the black to be the black and white to be gold. Alright, so we want to add a noise. For the noise texture, we want to add in a mapping and texture coordinate node. So we can go ahead and just change the Y value to this to be 25. And we want to change this to be 21. And the detail should be high, so 10, maybe like 8. And the scale here is too big, so I'm just gonna change it back to change it down to 15, maybe even 10 looks good. Alright, so this is too much still, as you can see. So I'm just going to move our white value closer, just move it back, and once you feel like you got the right value, how much gold you want to see on our black metal, and I think that's right. And yeah, that is our material for this mesh. We're just going to be using the same material for our this mesh as well. So all you can do is go to the material, add in a new material, just change it to material 0.003. Alright, and that is it. We are done with the katana. So I hope you liked it, and if you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Bye.